ENS 611 at the grad level. It's a kinetics class, which is the forces that underlie movement. And so we were running experiments with these, me and my grad students. And one of my grad students was this guy, Jasper Chang, who's now doing athletic training over in the Ivy Leagues, but at this time he was over at UCSD as an assistant athletic trainer. And as fortune would have it, he was at a budget meeting shortly after taking my class and doing some stuff with the Wii board, and they were considering buying this force plate system, which is a $15,000 neurocom system, particularly for concussions and athletic training. It's top of the line. And he was in this meeting and he spoke up and he said, "Why are we spending $15,000? I think we could buy 3 Wii boards and some laptops for like $1,000 and we'd have more systems, and Dr. Goble could make us some software, and what do you think?" And amazingly enough, they had the foresight to be like, "Yeah, let's totally do that." So they scrapped the $15,000 thing, and we, over the course of about a week and a half, built 3 very rudimentary concussion balance testing systems with some Wii boards and some laptops. They went out and collected 200 athletes worth of data. We published a little paper around it, got some concussions. It was all fun and good times in the Smart Lab. And then one day in 2013, my director at the time, Fred Colcourse, no longer our director, came down to the lab just kind of randomly. He's not a biomechanics guy, he's an exercise physiology guy. And he's like looking at me, he's like, "What are you doing?" So we start showing him this little setup, measure his balance, and he looks at me, he's like, the dollar signs were like in the eyes. Because he's like, we mentioned concussion, and it was right at the time when the NFL just settled for like billions of dollars, the concussion lawsuit, so that wouldn't get into the media and become a big thing. So he's like, "You know, stop right now doing what you're doing at UCSD, and you need to get over to the Zahn Center here on campus and turn this into a business." And I laughed, but he was my director, so I was like, "Sure, I'd love to go to the Zahn Center and see what they have to say." For those of you who don't know what the Zahn Center is, that's like the incubator on campus where you can go if you have a great business idea as a student or faculty member. And their sole purpose is to give you everything you need to get that thing going and turn it into a business. So I got over to the Zahn Center. It was right at the time where the director now had just started, Kathy Poocher. And I needed a couple of really big pieces to make this thing happen. One was I don't know anything about business, so they hooked me up with Andy May there. Andy is a guy who was retired in La Jolla, playing golf 3 times a week, had started 10 other businesses. 2 of them went big, and he just retired off the money and he was just hanging out doing nothing. They brought him in as a mentor on the project, and I ended up talking him out of retirement to come run this business with me. I don't know if he regrets that now, but so far so good. And then the other one's Brian Gehring, who's one of our Masters of Engineering students. He's now off in like LA, living on a beach somewhere, having a much better time than working with us. But he helped actually take we didn't want to sell Wii boards, obviously, so he helped us create our own device inspired on that to sell. And then, of course, we had to get through the FDA process. I mentioned we're a medical device. That's terrible. If anybody has questions about how awful going through bureaucracy of FDA approval, talk about that too. Then 2014, so we launched this company. We're a real thing. You can go to our website. It looks like that. Follow us on Twitter. We're actually on Facebook and Instagram as well now. I just started last week. Best idea ever. I have 250 undergrads. Decided, why not have undergrads run all my social media? So I have 2 18-year-olds just killing my social media now. They got us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all over the place. Twitter, I do love Twitter because I'm a big Twitter guy. Okay, so that's the story. Now we're going to actually talk some science because this is an academic lecture, right? So let's talk about validating V-tracks. First question I always get is it really as good as those expensive force plates? So I showed you 3 different force plate systems, all $5,000 and above. Is this little $800 version actually as good at measuring body sway as the expensive ones? So what we did about a year ago now is we created a fake human and we tested that out. What do I mean by a fake human? This device here is an inverted pendulum. If you think about the way you sway, we sway like an inverted pendulum. It's flipped on its head. And so this device just has a little rotation point here and a potentiometer to tell us how far it's been pulled back. And we put our board, the V-Trax here, on top of a $10,000 force plate that's in our lab, pulled back the string, let it go back and forth for a while, and then just saw how much the two devices looked like each other and how they recorded. So these are the signals that came out of the two devices. You're gonna have a hard time telling the difference between the two devices. So LFP is the laboratory force plate, and it's a gray line that's kind of behind this dotted line, and then the dotted line is V-Trax. These 6 different waveforms represent different distances we pulled back this device. So we pulled back a little bit more, a little bit more. This is obviously the biggest one. This is the smallest one. And then this is like 20 seconds of oscillating back and forth. And all told, in the end, you get less than 1% error between the two devices. The ICCs are like 0.99999, so it's like 99.99% the same as our $10,000 force plate. Just published that in the Journal of Biomechanics end of last year. It's been a very good paper to us so far. Okay, so it seems to be as good as a force plate. That's great. Next big question is I framed all this in concussion, right? So does this actually diagnose concussion any better than the crappy best test? And so what we did there was we ran a concussion study here on campus. So over the course of 2 years, I got buy-in from our head athletic trainer to run a balance test before the season on every athlete on campus who was in a high-risk sport. And that's most sports here actually are high risk for concussion. So even like your pole vaulters and like things you wouldn't think of get concussions. So in the end, we actually had over 500 athletes that we had baseline tested healthy. And then we were fortunate, they were not, to have 25 of them get concussions. And then we could test them within the first 48 hours of that concussion to see if the balance showed concussion, showed a deficit. So here's some sample data. So this is what a baseline test looks like on V-Trax. The yellow dot there is the trace of their body sway over the course of 20 seconds. So it's kind of tracing on top of itself because they're really, really still. But that's a full trace of their movement over 20 seconds. 16 is the centimeters of sway. So if you took that trace and like straightened it out, measured the length of it, you get 16 centimeters. And this is an example of a concussion. Same person. This person actually didn't get injured on the field. They fell in the shower and just cracked their head hard. And as the ambulance was coming, they threw them on the V-Trax. Some great collaborators to have that are like thinking that in the moment. They're like, let's get their balance before the ambulance comes. And this is a concussion that you don't really need V-Trax to see because that's a lot of body sway. That squiggle there is representing how they moved around over 20 seconds, 70 centimeters of sway. That's a whole lot. With V-Trax, what we've found based on studies is that it has an MDC of 5. An MDC is a minimum detectable change, and that's a 90% minimum detectable change, which just means that in 90% of people, their balance doesn't change anymore. From day to day, their balance is within 5 centimeters of itself. So if you measure 23 on one day, the next day you measured, if you were healthy, you'd be within 5 centimeters. So we know that for it to be a balance deficit, they need to be worse than 5 centimeters from their baseline. And V-Trax showed that essentially 6 out of 10 people, a little bit more than that, did have more than 5 centimeters of deficit after they got the head injury. So about 2/3 of people is its sensitivity. That doesn't sound that impressive, but it's actually really, really good when you think about the best test, which is worse than a flip of the coin. it gives you a 31% sensitivity according to the literature. So it actually biases you in the direction of putting the person back in the game even if they have a concussion. Again, it's an absolutely terrible test. So VTRAX is twice as good. It's definitely a higher standard of care than the very popular BEST test. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. A couple more results in the concussion space, and then I'll talk to you about what we're doing kind of outside of that world. The next question we tackled is fatigue. So balance testing, it's a motor test, and athletes, typically when they get concussions, have been running around on the field for 20 minutes or so, right? And so when you take them out, if they're tired, they're pretty likely to have worse balance just because their muscles are tired and fatigued. And that's definitely the case with the BEST test, where it's been shown that up to 20 minutes it takes for the BEST test to resolve its fatigue effects. So you wouldn't want to actually rely on the BEST test unless the athlete had been out of the game for 20 minutes. That's not really practical. If you're an athlete, you don't want to wait 20 minutes to know if you can get back in the game. It's definitely not practical for a coach or whatever. So we wanted to see if VTRAX was a little bit better than that. And we expected that it would be because the VTRAX balance test is much less complicated muscularly than the BEST test. So the BEST test has tandem and single leg and you're on foam. It requires a lot more muscular effort. VTRAX is just eyes closed like this, and it really just doesn't require a lot of muscular effort. So we expected that fatigue would have less of an impact. This is how we tired people out. We made them do 5 minutes of jogging, followed by 3 minutes of sprints, 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, 3 more minutes of step-ups, some more sprints, and some jogging. It got them really pretty tired. So their Borg scale would indicate that their heart rate was around 160, 170 following this. And then what we did was we just measured their balance before we tired them out and every 5 minutes after we tired them out until they were back to baseline. And then we had a control condition where we didn't tire them out at all. So we measured them, waited 20 minutes, and then measured them every 5 minutes. And so that's what this graph is. It's the comparison of those two conditions where we tired them out and didn't tire them out. The hatched bars are the we didn't tire them out conditions. So we baseline tested them, waited 20 minutes, and then just every 5 minutes, and you can see it's really flat. This is the fatigue condition, the gray bars, and you can see that after we tire them out here, there is a spike immediately after they stop exercising. They have more body sway, but that goes away within 5 minutes, which is substantially better than the BEST test. So that was good. We just got that accepted in IJATT. The next question we wanted to tackle from a reliability standpoint is learning effects. So this is another problem with the BEST test, is that athletes get better at the BEST test every time they do it. There's a learning effect to it. And we think that that learning effect is because, again, they're using all these difficult conditions, and in particular the single leg stance condition, people come up with strategies and get better at it just through exposure to that test. We have a much more simple thing. We don't believe that you can actually learn how to do eyes closed, two-legged standing from test to test, and that's what we just set out to prove. So what we did was we took a subset of people, tested them along day 1, day 3, day 15, and lo and behold, on average everybody looks the same. The ICCs are really high, so there doesn't appear to be any learning effects with our balance test. Also a good thing. Okay, so that's all the concussion stuff. Let me just give you a taste of everything else that we're doing, and then we can field questions. So, balance is more than just concussions. Anything that goes wrong in the brain, pretty much, anything that goes wrong in the muscles or in the bones, you're probably going to see consequences in body sway, which is great. So there's like unending clinical applications for measurement of balance. One of the biggest ones right now is fall risk prediction. So we have this aging population, and statistics are really very clear that over the age of 65, 1/3 to 1/2 of these people are falling yearly. And a good percentage of them are ending up in the hospital, and a good percentage of those people are dying within 6 months of being in the hospital. So it's a huge issue for the people falling. It's a big issue for the medical care system in general. And there's a lot of pushes now to figure out ways of figuring out who's going to fall ahead of time, preventative screening. And one of the ways you can do that is to give them a force plate balance test and see, do they have bad balance, and try to get them into some balance training intervention and help their balance before they fall. Be a lot cheaper than trying to deal with them after they fall. So we're doing that. And I'll talk about a paper after this. And then, as I said, really anything that hits the brain or muscles can have problems. And so these are all some interesting domains that I'm kind of toying around in. But it's much harder to do clinical work, so the fall risk stuff is a lot more fun for me immediately. So that's what this is. This is our one published fall risk paper. We just recently, as a company, released our fall risk metric. So when you run our 2-minute balance test now, if you're an older adult, it's going to tell you if you're high, moderate, or low fall risk. That's based on how many standard deviations your balance is from a healthy young adult. So if you're within 1 standard deviation of a healthy young adult, we say that your balance is low, you're low risk, low fall risk. If you're between 1 and 2, then you're moderate. And if you're more than 2 standard deviations from a healthy young adult, well, we think you're high risk for falling. And the statistics kind of bear that out in the clinical world. So we actually put this metric into play recently with a partner. So this is GeriFit. They're out of Temecula, but they're going national now. And what they are is, it's a workout program for older adults. It's very unique though, in that they actually use weights. So a lot of exercise programs for older adults are afraid to use weights. What GeriFit really promotes is you come in and do your training every week for 90 days. And during that training, you get the weights out. You're lifting, you're standing out of your chair with weights in your hands, doing all sorts of kickbacks and resistance stuff. And they really do show some amazing changes in the people who do their stuff. We wanted to combine with them to just test out B-Tracks as kind of a screening tool. So what we did was we measured people before they did this GeriFit program for 90 days with B-Tracks, got their high, low, or medium fall risk score, and then looked how they progressed at the end of the intervention. So these are the results. So sway is a bad thing, I should say. So the blue bar there being higher than the yellow bar means that they were worse before GeriFit and better after GeriFit. This is across everybody we tested, irregardless of their fall risk status. So that was kind of cool that the whole group on whole did well. But then we came across this finding, which was essentially if you break an older adult down into whether they're a low fall risk person or a high fall risk person before they do any of the training, the people who are low fall risk, they already have pretty good balance. So there's a ceiling effect there, and they just don't get much better doing the GeriFit program. Now there's lots of reasons to do GeriFit beyond trying to improve your balance, cardiovascular health, and things like that, but it's not really going to affect sway per se. But the nice thing was, if you had bad balance, according to our metric, if you had high fall risk, you were really likely to get better. You're going to get, on average, about 25% better at your postural sway. Which is a huge improvement and is likely going to reduce your fall risk. So those were some very encouraging things, and we think really B-Tracks could be a useful tool to put in senior homes, and we're starting to sell it in these places to measure the balance of all your clients, all your people, to try to identify those people who would A, potentially fall, and B, be a good candidate for some intervention like this. That's the other great thing about balance is this isn't like having a stroke or something where there's very little you can do to get yourself back. We know lots of things that can improve balance. So it's kind of an optimistic, bad set of news to deliver somebody that their balance is bad. Yes, you may fall, but we can do something about it. So that's the fall risk stuff. The other thing we're doing, just some general ideas as to where I'm taking this stuff. Normative data is a huge thing. I'm doing it all the